Sometimes you hear a story from a fish keeper and you just want to laugh at the person. But that would be rude. That would be mean. And, it's not a very nice thing to do, to laugh at that person. But the thing that they said was so absurd and so ridiculous that you just feel like you just need to walk away so that you can burst out laughing. There is a story that's been told by so many people that it's sad how many times this story has been told. And it's been told for as long as people have been keeping glass boxes full of water. It is one of the myths in fish keeping that I've heard it so much, it pisses me off when I hear it. Again, I want to laugh, but at the same time, when you're a newer fish keeper, you only know what you've been told, right? And you hear something, you think it sounds good, and so you're like, well, that's it. That's completely fine. And then you realize it's a load of malarkey. And what we're going to talk about here today is one of those myths that is a total load of malarkey. Here's the story. John, I have a real concern. I bought 5 Congo tetras, 10 rummy nose tetras, and a couple of this other fish. I don't know. I bought them all when my tank was new. I've had my tank for about 3 years, and things have been going really good. I think I lost 1 fish maybe kind of early when things were still settling in. But after a year or so, the tank settled in and everyone's happy and it's just been marvelous. It's been great. But here's the thing. About a month ago, there was one of the fish that for some reason decided to kill another one of the fish in the tank. I don't understand why he killed or she killed this other fish, because they've been living together for 3 years. And here's the thing. When I bought them, they were babies. So they grew up together. And I was always told that if fish grow up together, they're going to be completely fine. They should get along all the time. They'll never turn on each other. Why did this fish kill my fish? I don't want to ridicule anybody or make them feel bad or anything like that, because it's entirely possible that early in my fish keeping career, if you can call it that, I would have probably thought something similar too. I would have thought, yeah, I mean, shoot, they've been together for this long. Why would they turn on each other like that? It doesn't make any sense. So I think it's understandable that people would think this. But you have to understand, this is a total myth. This is absolutely not a real thing. Every single fish that I have in here right now, with the exception of maybe the pleco, that pleco could do a lot of damage if it wanted to, but every single one of those fish that I have in this tank is capable of turning tomorrow. And I make another video tomorrow and I only have 1 fish left in that tank because it's decided, you know what? I've had enough of y'all's shit. I'm done. And just take them all out. And any one of those fish that's in there is capable of doing that. I mean, the bikers can be fierce if they need to. We all know what Oscars are capable of. I mean, any fish, I don't care what kind of fish it is capable of turning on a dime. And if that happens, there is no stopping that fish from doing that. You're not going to say, hey, be nice, you. It's not going to work. They're going to turn and they're going to do what they're going to do. The fact that a fish grows up with another fish has no bearing whatsoever on the relationship of that fish with other fish. Now, you're going to see, the longer you browse through social media, you're going to see a lot of fish combinations that by the book shouldn't work. If you look at what the books say, you shouldn't be able to mix this fish with that fish. And you see it and you're like, that doesn't make sense. You can't do that. The book says you can't do that. Well, it is working for that particular fish keeper because rules aren't really a thing in this hobby. Yeah, there's lists of these fish can go with these fish, but it doesn't mean that it'll never work to mix other fish together. A lot of people would tell you, and I'd be one of them, that You can easily mix arowanas with Oscars. They're not a problem. I've done it before and it's worked out great. And it did. But in this tank, it didn't work out at all. In fact, the Oscars were only like 3 inches long and they killed an arowana that was over 12 inches. But I've had them in the past where they did fine. So that doesn't make sense. These 2 Oscars right here are assholes. That's why that happened. This one, not so much. It was just these 2. They killed that arowana. They were all introduced into the aquarium as babies. They were all put in there together. This was all brand new to them. And it was like 8 months later when it happened. But it happened. And there's nothing I could have done to have stopped it. They didn't really grow up together, but they were in there a long time together. But the Oscars just decided, no, that's it. Hey, big fella, you're not the big man on the totem pole anymore. We're going to take you out. And they did it. And the arowanas were always up top, so the Oscars would have been looking up at them. That's why I'm doing that. You can't see it coming, but at the same time, my friend Jason Adams from Primetime Aquatics, my podcast partner, Tank Talk Podcast, not every morning, Monday morning, we upload a new episode. Go subscribe to that if you like fish talk. He had a tank that I loved. He doesn't have it anymore, but I loved it. I went and visited his place back in a long time ago, and he had an aquarium with a giant tilapia in it, which I had never seen in somebody's home aquarium before, and giant Oscars in there. And guess what else was in there? Little baby peacock cichlids, African cichlids. There's no book on this planet that would tell you African cichlids, like peacocks, can be mixed with Oscars and it's going to be okay. There's no book that would tell you that. But yet he was doing it and it was fine. And guess what? The peacocks were breeding. There were babies in there and the Oscars didn't eat them. I was mesmerized by this. I'm like, how is this possible? I don't believe what I'm seeing out of my eyes, but it happened. And that tank was thriving for years. I was mesmerized by that because you're not supposed to be able to do that. The rule is if you put something in a tank that can fit in an Oscar's mouth, or really any fish's mouth for that matter, it's going to eat it, but particularly Oscars, but not these. The point that I'm trying to make is that worked, and it shouldn't have worked. But it didn't work because they grew up together. It worked because Jason was like, well, let's give this a try. And it worked. It worked beautifully. And it was one of my favorite tanks I've ever seen. You can put any combination of any fish. You can put brother and sister. You can raise a batch of fry. And they're siblings. They came from the same mouth. They came from the same litter. These are siblings. They grew up together. They've literally never been apart. And then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose and they all start killing each other. It doesn't matter. It's instinct. It's what they do. These are animals that can turn on a dime. And so growing up together means nothing. I'm sure there's plenty of stories out there like Jason's, or maybe there's a story of, I have this little tiger barb. And this tiger barb was put into an aquarium with a silver arowana that can get this big. And they grew up together and they've lived harmoniously forever. And it's been wonderful and it's been great. And the arowana's never done anything to hurt that tiger barb, which is this big. Okay, maybe this big. And the arowana's 2.5 feet long now. Never bothered them. That's not because they grew up together. That's just because the arowana said, nah, not into that for whatever reason. That's a fast fish. Arowanas are kind of slow unless they see an insect up in a tree. I'm just not going to mess with that fish. The arowana, for whatever reason, decided that it's not my style. I'm not after that fish. And so it works in that situation. It's not working because they grew up together. It doesn't work that way. I know this might sound like something that I'm completely making up here, but I promise you I am not. I've heard it so many times. And it's funny to me. I could do an entire series of videos about what I consider to be kind of silly things, that are said to me that these people believe is gospel truth. And I have to be the one to let them know, nah, I'm sorry. You know, if you put those fish together, even if they're babies and you put them together, it might work. And you might be emailing me 5 years from now saying, John, I mixed those fish that you told me I could mix, and I've had the 5 best years of my life. It's been absolutely incredible. Or you could be emailing me 3 months later saying, John, you're an idiot. You told me I could put those fish together. I put them together, and now I'm left with one. The Jack Dempsey's the only one that's left. He killed everything else. Why would you tell me that it's okay to put those together? It could go either way. This hobby is a hobby that could go any way. What you do might not work for me. What I do might not work for you, or that guy, or that girl, or that person, or we're all doing our own thing. And what works for us is great, but it doesn't mean that it's working because of what that myth says. You know what I mean? There's all kinds of things like that. There's the inch per gallon sale. There's the, not, what? What words just came out of my mouth? Inch per gallon. You know what I mean? An inch per gallon. So if a fish is 3 inches, it needs 3 inches, a 3 gallon tank. I haven't been drinking, I promise. Everybody's heard the inch per gallon or a gallon per inch. If your fish is 5 inches, it needs a 5 gallon tank. Do you realize how ridiculous that is? But yet everybody has heard that. And I believe at one point or another, everyone has heard if fish grow up together, they're going to be okay. I think most people have common sense that you put a Midas cichlid in with a rummy-nosed tetra, at some point, that rummy-nosed tetra will become food. It's only a matter of time. It's going to happen. And you shouldn't be sad when it happens because you knew that was going to happen, because at some point that Midas cichlid is going to be this big and that rummy-nose is still going to be this big. Guess what that means? Yeah, sure. It could work out. Just like Jason's Oscars didn't eat the peacocks. But more than likely, that rummy-nosed tetra is going to turn out to be food. And I get this email. I bet you I get it once a month. I don't understand. Why did my fish die? I don't understand. Why did they kill my fish? They've been together for 5 years. What did I do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. You may have mixed 2 fish together that the rule book says that you're not supposed to, and now you've been proven, or it's been proven that in this particular case, the rule book was right. Or it might be that your fish is just an asshole. That fish right there is. And that, I don't know, is that the tiger? Yeah, those 2 right there. Yep, big a-holes. And this is why I haven't added anything else to that tank. Tell you another story. I didn't really talk about this much, but this happened recently. You may have looked in this tank behind me and you may be saying, you know, something's missing. It looks different. Wasn't there Severums in there? Gold Severums that John put in there when the tank was brand new? Yeah, there was. There's not anymore. You want to know why that is? When I got this tank, I could understand if you laughed at me when I got this tank, because it's 8 feet long, 3 feet deep, and 2 feet tall. I bought it specifically for arowanas and Oscars. I did a whole video about it, going and picking out the fish. I bought the 2 Oscars, and with them, I bought 3 gold Severums and 3 arowanas that were only about 8 inches long. One of the gold Severums died pretty quick, like within a couple of weeks. He was the new tank casualty. It sucked, but I still had 2 in there, the 2 Oscars and the 3 arowanas. The arowanas eventually all got picked off. One of them jumped out of the tank. That was my fault. Sorry. The other 2 eventually were killed by those 2 a-holes in there. But the Severums were fine. Completely fine. They didn't bother anybody else and nobody else bothered them. I added the 3rd Oscar here and that red Oscar. Again, they all mixed in perfectly fine. The 3 of them have been living together perfectly. They're all usually together. The Severums would be like way over here and the Oscars would be over here, and nobody bothered each other and everything was great. Until about 6 months ago, one of the sevrums just started looking really sick, and a day later he was gone. It happened really, really fast. We did everything we could to try to save him, but by the time he was showing symptoms, it was already too late. I don't know why he died, and I'll never know. That left one sevrum in there, and that one sevrum lasted about another 2 months or so. And these a-holes, they were like, oh, okay, you're going to hang out over there by yourself, huh? All right, we'll see about that. And they decided to start terrorizing that fish. It happened so fast. We saw a couple of like jumps at it. Oscars, they'll just open their mouth real wide and just kind of push themselves onto another fish. Saw that happen a couple of times, but the fish would swim away, the sevrum would swim away, and everything would be fine. We saw that a couple of times, and then one day we come in, dead. John, you probably should have taken that sevrum out and put it somewhere else. And yeah, you're right, but I don't have anywhere I could have put it. And those Oscars push each other around like that. I mean, they do that. They're Oscars. That's what they do. I saw it happen, but it didn't alarm me like, oh, they're going to kill this fish. They've been together for 5 years. Should be fine. Nope. All of a sudden, they weren't. But at the same time, the three bikers, they've never touched them. Never touched them. So the three bikers certainly didn't grow up with those Oscars. But the fish that did grow up with those Oscars, all of them ended up dead. The red Oscar didn't grow up with the Oscar. He's fine. But everything else that was put in that tank, there's only 2 fish in here that were from the original batch. And those 2 assholes right there. Where's the... Oh, he's behind my head now. This a-hole and this a-hole. But they're 2 of my favorite a-holes on the whole planet. I'm sorry I keep saying that, but I love those fish so much. Look at them. They might push each other around right now. It's almost like big brothers. That's what they do. Like, hey, I got to put you in your place every once in a while. But they don't hurt each other. And then the bikers, they don't even pay attention to the bikers. So, but the reality is, and the worst thing about this hobby, and I've experienced multiple times, those Oscars, like I said in the beginning of this video, they could turn tomorrow and everything will end up dead. So the whole point to all of my rambling here is this is a very unpredictable hobby. You can do everything right and things can still go wrong. And you can be doing something that you think is right, but is actually ridiculous, and it never ends up working out the way that you want it to. If you've ever been told by anyone, fish that grow up together are going to be fine forever, just know that person just lied to you. Don't ever listen to that person again. They actually might just be telling you their experiences and it worked for them, but it doesn't mean that it's going to work for you. So yeah, don't abandon any advice that they tell you, as long as they follow it up with, at least that's what I've done and it worked out for me. I don't know. I hope that helps. Bye.